Okay, today in the session, let us discuss about the interview. Now, every one of you have experienced this. So, when I use the word interview in general terms, you might have um, consulted a doctor. So, it is an interview. In your school, you might have met the head of the institution or so for some discussion. It is also a type of interview. So, what we are discussing today is about the job interview. Now, why this job interview should happen? Now, an employer should know the candidate, correct? What are its strengths? What are its weaknesses? Whether he is suitable to be hired. So, all those things the employer or a manager should know. So, therefore, there will be a one-to-one conversation between the job applicant and the representative of an employer. Always, it need not be an employer in a large organization. Nobody will see the employer actually or the owners. So it is a manager or HR officer or HR manager or vice president. So these people will conduct the interviews. So while conversation is happening between the representative of the employer and the job applicant, the employer or its representative will get a lot of information from the job applicant. So this interview can happen either in the structured form or in the unstructured form also. Now let us discuss about the different types of interviews in this session. Now what is the importance of interview? Now you in the previous videos you might have listened to the selection tests and all this, even before that application blank and all those things you have heard. Now here it is a verification. So to verify the information obtained in the previous steps, that is the application form and so many tests have been conducted. So here it is the verification, we can say in simple words. So the candidate's qualification, his characters, all those things can be obtained by this one-to-one interview, and finally the employer can decide whether to hire the candidate or not. So the employer will also give some information about the job, about the company, so that the job applicant also can decide whether to opt for this job or not. So it is a two-way. It doesn't mean that when the job applicant gets selected, he has to join. It is his right whether to join or not, he will decide. Okay. Then also to establish a rapport between the company and the candidate. So this is very important to promote the company's goodwill. Now, if the interviewer is very harsh, he's not at all listening to the job applicant, then this job applicant may go out and say, oh, that company is not good, they're all not very rough people. So the goodwill of the company will be lost. So the interviewer should be very, very careful in dealing with the job applicant, to be in a gentle manner, in a professional way. Now let us discuss about the different types of interviews. First one is about the informal interview. This can happen anywhere. There is no structure at all. It is an unplanned also. Now, for example, you are the owner of a company and one of your friend comes to know that there is a vacancy immediately. So this friend will get one candidate either to the employer's house or office or anywhere. It could be happening in the canteen or a restaurant or at home or in the office, anywhere. So here the employer or the manager will ask few questions about his personal background, his education, his qualification, his experience and all those things. So if he is happy about the candidate, he may say, okay, come and join tomorrow. This is very simple. So this is informal interview. Coming to the second one, this is about the formal interview. So this is actually well planned and it is in a for a formal atmosphere. So the venue, the time, the interview panel and the questions to be asked are decided well in advance because it happens in a very formal setup. Usually this is what is happening in most of the organizations. Third one is patterned or structured interview. We can also consider this as a directed or a guided interview. So such an interview is fully planned to a high degree of accuracy and precision. All minute details are also taken care here. A list of questions to be asked is prepared in advance, and the time that has to be allotted for each of the candidate and what information to be sought from the candidate are all pre-decided. So interviewer is more active here, and the candidate is expected only to answer the question, okay, because it is a directed interview. So a standardized pattern is adopted, or a structure of the interview is decided in advance. So this pattern interview will help to minimize the personal bias and prejudice, and it also provides uniformity and consistency too. Because if there are 10 candidates to be interviewed, you'll be asking the same type of questions to all the 10 candidates because it is structured, right? You have already prepared the questions to be asked in advance, and it is in written form. So there should not be any personal bias in this case. Fourth one is about the unstructured or non-directed interview. It is actually the opposite of the previous one, we can say. So here the candidate is allowed to speak his mind freely. Interviewer most of the time will be a patient listener. Okay, so interview is totally unplanned, and the interview is not directed by the questions to be asked. Here no set of questions will be prepared in advance. So this is more flexible actually. So candidate will feel more at ease. Here the candidate is allowed to determine the time and the direction for discussions. He himself will start talking about himself, about his background, about his expectation, whatnot. There is totally a freedom for the job applicant here to expose himself. Okay, so here the interviewer will come to know, looking at the way he speaks and the contents what he speaks, the interviewer can judge a lot of things here. So better assessment of the candidate also will happen. But here the interviewer should be very competent. Otherwise what will happen? The discussion may lose its direction and may lead to simply a wastage of time and effort. The candidate will go on speaking anywhere, so the direction will be totally lost. So that should not happen. The interviewer should be very competent in this case. Then fifth one, this is called as depth interview. This is actually a semi-structured where more details are sought of one key area. Say for example, you want a Java programmer. So you will probe so many questions, and you will come to know whether the candidate really knows this concept or not. Okay, so if you are hiring a person for a chief accountant, so you will ask so many questions in that area very deeply. Okay, so it is designed to intensively examine the candidate's expertise in his area of interest or the job interview for which he is attending. So the experts in the concerned area of knowledge ask relevant questions so as to judge whether the candidate is real expert in this area. So whether he can be hired or not, the interviewer can decide, looking at the depth of the knowledge of the candidate. Sixth one is about the group interview. So here the interview happens in groups. There may be 2 or 3 or one interviewer, it depends, but there will be group of people. So some topic is given and the interviewer will observe. The candidates in the group are carefully observed in all aspects, like who will lead the discussions, how well they will participate in the discussion, and how each one makes his presentation, and how well they react to others' views. This is very important. Suppose one person want to deny, how he will deny. So every word is very carefully observed. So this interview is based on the assumption that behavior displayed in a group situation is related to potential success in the job, because in most of the organization it is the team effort, it is not one man's job. He has to involve the team. He has to coordinate with the many people. So how the candidate behaves in group will be known in this group interview. Seventh one is about the stress interview. Now, the purpose of the stress interview is to find out how a candidate behaves in stressful situation. Normal situation, he may perform better, no doubt. But under a stressful situation, how will he react? Whether he loses his temper, whether he gets confused or frightened or feels frustrated. So everything can be noted here. So sometimes the interviewer intentionally puts the candidate on the defensive way by trying to embrace him or to frustrate him. Here, a lot of questions will be asked, maybe rapidly. And when the candidate answers, the interviewer will criticize. He interrupts him in between. He will never allow the applicant to speak or complete his answer for the previous question. And sometimes the interviewer will simply keep silent for a long period. Okay, so ask too many questions simultaneously, make some derogatory comments, accuses him on lying, because he may answer something, the candidate, but he will say, you are lying. Actually, he may be saying the truth, but here purpose is not that. Here, by saying that you are lying, he is putting the candidate in a tensed situation, and he will observe how the candidate will react. Okay, so stress interviews are more common now, where an emotional balance or resistance to stress is required. Sometimes after sales service, and sometimes salespeople also, they'll also have a lot of stress, a lot of targets. So using this type of stress interview, you'll come to know how the candidate behaves in the stressed environment. That is the only purpose. It is not to insult you. Okay. Eighth one is about the panel or board interview. So here there will be many interviewers. It can be 3, it can be 4, it can be 5, depends on the organization. And the questions are asked in turn or at random. Sometimes one person will ask, sometimes another person also will counter that question. So like that it happens. So here the candidate's skill in managing the group confidently matters. So how the candidate will have his eye contact, whether he is looking at only one person or whether he is looking at all the people, and what is his posture, his gesture, everything will be observed in this interview. And ninth one is about the telephonic interview. Most of the organization now, for the preliminary interview, they conduct this telephonic interview only, so as to save time. And if there are many applicants, using this preliminary interview, which is conducted using telephone, will reduce the number of candidates to call them for the personal interview. It saves a lot of time. Now you see, in this COVID-19 pandemic has explored a lot of online platforms for us to conduct meetings or to conduct interviews. It could be with the Zoom or Google Meet or WebEx. So it saves a lot of time. Only for the final round the candidate may be called. Sometimes even for final round also he will not be called. Directly appointment letter will be sent after the interview happening online mode. Then 10th one is about the case interview. So here the candidate will be tested about the problem solving skills. Interviewer will give a situation or provide him a case study and ask the candidate to formulate a plan that deals in solving a problem. So the interviewers are testing here how the candidate applies his knowledge and skills to a real life situation. So interviewers will give him either a real life situation or some case study just to see how the candidate will express his views on this case and how he will come up with the solution. And next is about the lunch or the dinner interview. So here the candidate will be called for to join the interviewer for lunch, or it may be dinner or sometimes breakfast too. It depends. Setting may be more of a casual. It may be in the restaurant or it can be in the office canteen or wherever it is. But remember, it is a business meal. So You need to follow all the business etiquettes, the table manners, and avoid messy food and also alcohol during the interview. So decency has to be maintained because everything will be observed by the interviewer. Okay, so this is about the lunch or dinner interview. So there are 11 types what we discussed now. So depending on the organization structure or organizational policy, they may conduct any of these types. So it is not necessary that it has to go in a structured manner. It has to be only stress interview. It has to be only structured or informal. So anything which the organization feels more apt for the choosing the candidates, they can go for it. Okay, so now here the important questions would be, one is for the lengthy or the essay type, they can ask to explain all the types of interviews, or sometimes they may only ask explain telephonic interview or explain stress interview, anyone they may ask, or sometimes two they may ask. So it is very easy, you can understand it and remember in a very comfortable manner. So that's all in this video. So see you again in the next topic. Thank you.